On this week's NESN Patriots Podcast, we discuss if it's time to panic over New England's defense while recapping the team's Week 6 win over the Chiefs and previewing Week 7's matchup with the Bears. Hello and welcome to the NESN Patriots Podcast. I'm Doug Kyed, joined as always by Zack Cox. Zack, how are you doing?
Doing well, Doug. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm so used to saying that intro at this point that I almost said it while doing my mailbag video this week. I don't know if you were in the room for that or not, but I was like, hello and welcome to this week's mailbag. I'm Doug Kyed, not joined by anyone right now. It was me by myself.
Just talking to yourself.
Just talking to myself. Joined as always by myself and the mailbag. But Patriots won in a shootout over the Chiefs in Week 6. Patriots play the Bears in Week 7. These are two really good matchups back-to-back, but let's get into that Chiefs game first because really a whole lot happened. Just recapping things really quickly, Patriots defense looked pretty darn good in the first half, and they looked pretty darn bad in the second half. And I'd say that based on the defensive performance in the second half, the Patriots were kind of lucky to come out of that game with a win.
Yeah, I think you could say that. But I also don't think that it wasn't realistic for them to be able to shut down Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs offense as well as they did in the first half for an entire game. I think that the dam was going to break eventually. Now, you want to come out of that game having not allowed 40 points. You maybe come out of that game with 28 points or something like that, because the second half really was kind of a repeat of a lot of the issues that they had against the Chiefs last year, just with the big plays and the total coverage breakdowns. Or we're still not exactly sure what happened on a couple of those big plays, but it seemed to be a situation where one of the defensive backs thought another defensive back was going to help him in coverage or be there deep down the field, and that just didn't happen, and that allowed Tyreek Hill to basically run all around the field during that second half. But I mean, I wrote about this yesterday. I don't think it's all bad for the Patriots defense out of this game because they looked legitimately good in the first half. I mean, Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs were able to move the ball, but that's what you expect from an offense that's that high-powered. And the Patriots ended up doing a lot of what they did for that really good stretch they had last year, where they allowed a team to move down to the red zone and then shut them down. I mean, the Chiefs went 2 for 5 in red zone trips, or scored 2 touchdowns on their 5 red zone trips. If you expand that to their 25-yard line, they went 2 for 7 with, I think, 4 field goals and an interception or something like that. So this was a really solid performance by the Patriots defense in the first half. I mean, almost all of those stops came in the first half. Second half, they had 1 red zone stop, and then they had they forced 1 3 and out. Other than that, it was basically just arena football all around the field by the Chiefs. So a lot to improve on, obviously, after you allow 40 points. But I don't think this was a disaster for the Patriots defense.
It wasn't, and I think that I agree with a lot of most of what you said. Yeah, the first half they did look great, or they certainly looked good. They looked better than I expected them to in the first half. There, they were making red zone stops. The big plays were definitely concerning because they let up a 67-yard touchdown to Kareem Hunt on a passing play. They let up a 75-yard touchdown to Tyreek Hill. They let up a huge kick return, 97-yarder.
Kick return's been kick coverage has been a huge issue.
Yeah, it really has been. I don't know what's really going on there. To be honest, I just don't know enough about special teams to be able to tell what's going on there. But on the plus side, I think that a lot of the issues the Patriots had on Sunday are fixable. On Kareem Hunt's 67-yard touchdown, it was a scramble play. Jason McCourty just really didn't do a good enough job sticking with Kareem Hunt on the play. It seemed like he was even kind of creeping up, thinking that Patrick Mahomes was going to take off running, and then he kind of lost his man in coverage.
You saw one moment of hesitation there.
Right, and that was enough to get Kareem Hunt to turn upfield. And then on Tyreek Hill's 75-yarder, it seemed like it was a coverage breakdown. If it wasn't, and the Patriots were trusting Duron Harmon alone in that deep part of the field, I don't know if you can totally blame the play call because Duron Harmon was actually behind Tyreek Hill when Tyreek Hill made that catch. Mm-hmm. But Tyreek Hill is just so fast that he just sprinted by him. And, I mean, I guess on the plus side, the Patriots aren't going to see another receiver as fast as Tyreek Hill unless they play the Chiefs in the playoffs. So they probably won't even run into that issue again until they play Tyreek Hill again. But I would definitely say that if it was a coverage breakdown, that's fixable. If it wasn't a coverage breakdown, then I think they'd probably just be smarter than to leave a safety alone in the deep part of the field to cover a receiver as fast as Tyreek Hill. Or at least you would hope they would be smart enough in the future to not do that.
Yeah, especially since Tyreek Hill has scored a couple of touchdowns that on basically that same kind of play earlier this season. I think he had one in, I believe it was week 1 against the Chargers, where he caught a kind of a deep slant post type of thing. And there were 2 safeties right next to him, and he just turned it and ran straight past him. I mean, he's a guy that is incredibly athletic, incredibly fast, and is just Duron Harmon acknowledged during the week. It was actually kind of a fitting circumstance that all week Duron Harmon was talking about how ridiculously fast Tyreek Hill was, and then Tyreek Hill ends up sprinting away from him for a 75-yard touchdown. But yeah, again, like you said, unless the Patriots play the Chiefs in the playoffs, which is a very likely scenario, then they're not going to see someone quite as dynamic as Tyreek Hill and quite as fast as Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, I'd say that, there are definitely some other issues on defense for the Patriots. The Patriots did not record a sack in this game. They only have 4 sacks in their last 5 games, and they only have 7 sacks in 6 games this season.
Tied for the last in the NFL.
Yeah, they are not converting pressures into sacks. They're still doing a decent enough job getting pressures. Adrian Claiborne and Dante Hightower, Trey Flowers all had some kind of high-impact pressures that led to either incompletions or interceptions, but sacks are such big impact plays, and they're such drive killers for the opposing offense that they really do need to start converting some of these pressures into sacks, if they don't, then we're going to continue to see opposing teams convert on third down. We're going to continue to see them driving down the field with ease and eating up clock. So that's definitely one issue. To combat that with a positive, the Patriots are doing a really good job of getting takeaways this season. I think they're 6th in the league in takeaways right now. They had 2 more interceptions against Pat Mahomes. Dante Hightower and Duron Harmon both had interceptions. And takeaways have actually kind of been a problem for this team over the last few years. So whereas the Patriots were actually doing a good job sacking quarterbacks in the past and not getting takeaways, now that's kind of reversed, and now they can't sack quarterbacks and they are getting takeaways. So if they could find a balance there, that would probably be ideal. But I don't know. I think the lack of sacks is getting a little bit concerning at this point in the season.
Yeah, I would say so. We talked to Brian Flores on a conference call yesterday, and he kind of is of the mind, it seems, that sack stats are a little bit overrated, that just because a player isn't generating sacks doesn't mean he's not generating pressure and being an impactful player in the pass rush. He singled out Adrian Claiborne, who you mentioned earlier, who doesn't have a sack yet this season, but has been pretty disruptive in the pass game, at least over the last 2 games. But saying that, you do want to you don't want to be last in the league in sacks. No. Just because a team, you don't have to be a league leader in sacks to have a potent pass rush. But when you look and you see that the Patriots have only gotten to opposing quarterbacks 7 times in 6 games, that's a little bit of an issue. It might not be as glaring as that stat indicates, because like I said before, they are getting better pressure than that. But you definitely want that to change a little bit, because you need impact plays on defense. They are getting the takeaways, as you said. They have at least 1 interception in all 6 games this season, which is a big improvement over last season, especially. But yeah, you want to bring down the quarterback at least at a moderate rate. Even if they're middle of the road in the league in sacks, you don't want to be last. You don't want to be way down there.
No, definitely not. Let's get into a couple more positives about the Patriots defense. I thought that actually Elandon Roberts is having a pretty decent season overall. I thought that he was a guy who made some more plays on Sunday. Stephon Gilmore continued to lock down the opposing team's biggest wide receiver. In this case, that was Sammy Watkins.
Great pass break up in the end zone.
Yeah, he had just 2 catches on 4 targets for 18 yards. I believe that Gilmore was in coverage on all 4 of those targets, both catches. So definitely a positive performance from him. I think that Lawrence Guy is continuing to play well. And Dante Hightower, I'd say he had a slightly inconsistent game just because there were some issues in pass coverage for him, but he did have the interception. He did have a pressure that led to
the other interception,
Duron Harmon's interception, and he blew up a screen pass for, I think it was a tackle for loss. If it wasn't a tackle for loss, it was only for it was no gain or 2 yards or something like that. So what he might have lacked in consistency, he definitely made up for in big plays on defense in this game. It might have been his best game of the season overall.
I would say it was his best game of the season, and yeah, you definitely did see a little bit of those inconsistencies in pass coverage. I think his two worst plays came really right at the beginning of the game.
Yes.
He lost who was it? I think it was Travis Kelce first. Kelce was able to get away from him for a 15, 16-yard game, and then he just got toasted by Kareem Hunt, basically on the exact same play, or the exact same route at least, that Hunt scored his long touchdown on last year against Cassius Marsh. Patrick Mahomes wasn't able to hit him. He was pretty wide open, would have been an easy touchdown. But after that, I didn't really see any kind of glaring miscues from him, and like you said, he was involved in several of the biggest defensive plays of the day.
Let's get into the offense a little bit. Sony Michel had another good game. But really, Sony Michel had a good game, but I would credit a lot of that to the offensive line.
Offensive line was awesome.
And really kind of the Chiefs' defensive line being piss poor, because it was kind of a clinic by the Patriots' offensive line, and plus tight end Rob Gronkowski for a lot of the game. It was almost like they were going up against like tackling dummies or something. That's kind of how I felt watching the game, because like every block that the Patriots were making was just perfect. They were sealing off the edge. They were creating gigantic holes. James Devlin was creating space as a lead blocker. I think I only saw like one blown pull block by a guard. It was really a clinic by the Patriots offensive line.
Yeah, some of the Chiefs have been terrible at defending the run all season, and some of their alignment was a little bit weird. There was one run where they just left the center and the guard completely uncovered. The Patriots were like, okay, we're going to run straight up the middle, and then they just pushed a couple linebackers out of the way. Sony Michel's right up the middle for 16 yards. But this is basically exactly what Sony Michel said after the game when we talked to him. We're like, Sony, it's 100 yards twice in 3 weeks. He has like something like 312 yards over the last three games. Like, what's going on? What's going well for you? He's like, it's really all the offensive line. And I mean, that's him being humble, but it's also kind of true. I mean, he's definitely running well. It's basically the same thing that we talked about last week. He's running well. He's showing better vision, better burst, but a lot of these holes are just gigantic because the offensive line and James Devlin and Rob Gronkowski have been playing so well.
Yeah, he only forced, I believe, 2 missed tackles in that game against the Chiefs, and I think he only averaged about 2.5 yards after contact, which I know that's not like a common stat or anything, but I'm actually trying to look it up real quick. Among qualified running backs, he ranked... where is he?
He's 12 right there.
12th in yards after contact on average among 18 running backs. So kind of middle of the road, just as far as who the best was. Melvin Gordon averaged 5.72 yards after contact. Frank Gore averaged 5 yards after contact. And then Alex Collins was last at 1.63 yards after contact. So, it was fine for Sony Michel, but it definitely wasn't spectacular. And he actually only forced 1 missed tackle. But the vision, I think, was what stood out to me about his performance. And obviously it's easier to have good vision when you've got massive holes in front of you. But definitely not knocking Sony Michel. Solid game. Just a lot of that was due to the offensive line. The other big change on offense was that the Patriots really kind of restructured their passing game, where Josh Gordon really emerged as a starting snap caliber player. He played 63 out of 78 potential offensive snaps. Philip Dorsett only played 3 snaps. Cordero Patterson only played 3 snaps, I think, or 6 snaps. And Chris Hogan only played 47 snaps. So Julian Edelman was the number 1 receiver. Josh Gordon was the number 2 receiver. Hogan was number 3. And then Patterson and Dorsett were way down the line at 4 and 5. Gordon also was the Patriots' top targeted receiver in the game. Tom Brady targeted him 9 times. He had 5 catches for 42 yards. He also drew a 37-yard pass interference penalty. I would say that, it wasn't like the greatest performance of all time by Josh Gordon or anything.
Still a work in progress.
Still a work in progress. There were a couple times when he had miscommunication with Tom Brady. But just the fact that the Patriots are targeting him so much, giving him so many snaps, all of this, I think, has to be gleaned as a positive out of this performance for Josh Gordon.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, we talked last week about, or kind of speculated, whether Josh Gordon would become basically a starting receiver for the Patriots, and it's clear that he is a starting receiver right now. Yeah. And the real kind of person that's, I guess, hurt from that playing time wise is Philip Dorsett, who really he only went on the field when the Patriots went with 4 wide receiver sets, which they hardly ever run. They'd only run 4 or 5 plays out of those sets going into the game. So it doesn't seem like we're going to see much Philip Dorsett moving forward unless there's some sort of shakeup in the hierarchy above him. But if Philip Dorsett's your number 5 wide receiver, or if Philip Dorsett and Cordell Patterson are your 4 and 5 in the depth chart, that's a pretty good place to be. I mean, because having Josh Gordon in there, having Julian Edelman in there, opens up the game for everybody. Chris Hogan had his best game of the season, had a huge catch. I believe it was a 42-yarder on a 3rd and 1 late in the game. He really wasn't involved much at all during the first 5 weeks. I think the attention that has to be paid now to Gordon, to Edelman, to James White, to Rob Gronkowski opens things up a little bit for Chris Hogan in there. And I think Josh Gordon's another guy who will continue to improve. I mean, so he had 9 targets, 5 catches. On a couple of those incompletions, it seemed like there was still some sort of, I don't know if I would classify it as miscommunication or if it's just Tom Brady thinking he's going to be 2 steps to his left,
it might have been
2 steps to his right.
Yeah.
Timing, just kind of maybe they're not reading a play the exact same way. And I mean, these are guys that have only worked together for a month or so now, which is what Tom Brady and Josh Gordon both said after the game. They're still kind of, even though Brady has really praised the kind of level of commitment and the connection that they've already been able to forge together, there's still a long ways to go. And I think you'll see Josh Gordon continue to take on an even greater and greater role in this offense.
Definitely. Rob Gronkowski finished with 3 catches on 4 targets for 97 yards. He was kind of blanked in the middle half of the game. I think he had 1 catch early in the game. Right?
I think he was he was targeted 3 times on either the first drive or the first 2 drives. He caught a 16-17 yard pass, drew a defensive holding penalty, and then had that drop across the middle.
Right. And
then really wasn't targeted until the 4th quarter when he had those 2 big gains late.
Yeah, and one of those led to a field goal, right? It was
the first one. The first one, it was a 42-yard pass. Came on a really creative play too. It was when they basically had they lined up Rob Gronkowski on the left side, had him pretty much loop around left tackle Trent Brown, and then had Trent Brown block the guy that was supposed to be covering Rob Gronkowski. And then Gronkowski's just wide open in the open field on basically a screen pass, sprinted down the field, stiff-armed a guy 42 yards. That led to the Steven Gostkowski 50-yard field goal, which put them up by 7 immediately before Tyreek Hill's long touchdown. Then he caught another one that basically won the game for the Patriots because it brought them down to the 9-yard line, I believe. Gostkowski kicks the game winner 2 plays later. So Rob Gronkowski very, I guess, kind of contains impact in this game, but he made 2 of the biggest plays of the game.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure that he would like to get more involved in the offense. I'm sure that Tom Brady would like to get him more involved in the offense. He only has 1 touchdown on the season, but he is still on pace for a 1,000-yard year. He's on pace for 69 catches, which I'm sure that he would like to see, for 1,080 yards and just 3 touchdowns. So I think those touchdown numbers definitely will start to climb here. I believe he's only been targeted once in the red zone so far this season.
Yeah, I haven't checked after the last 2 games, but it was like that at least going into the Indy game.
So that's definitely surprising from the Patriots offense, and I'm sure that we will start to see those red zone targets grow a little bit. But like I said, still on pace for a 1,000-yard season, so not all bad for Rob Gronkowski. Let's get into this week's game against the Bears. The Bears are 3-2. They have a second-year quarterback in Mitchell Trubisky. Certainly not as good as Patrick Mahomes, but he's been, kind of up and down for the Bears so far.
He's been up and down. He's played really well in the last 2 games, actually, or at least put up very, very good stats. He had 1 really costly interception against the Dolphins. It was just a poor decision, an interception in the end zone. It's kind of similar to the interception that Mahomes had to Deron Harmon. But I mean, if you look at Mitch Trubisky's stats from the last 2 games, I'll pull it up because he had the 6 touchdown game against the Buccaneers 2 weeks ago. Then went over 300 passing yards again against the Dolphins on Sunday. He's averaging something like 11 yards per completion, or per pass attempt rather, over the last 2 games. And all right, here we go. I'll pull them up so I'm not just rambling by myself here. All right, so against the Buccaneers in week 4, 19 of 26, 354 yards, 6 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 154.6 passer rating. Then against the Dolphins this past weekend, 22 of 31, 316 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick, 122.5 passer rating. So these were 2 of the better performances of Mitch Trubisky's career because he really wasn't much a particularly prolific passer last year when he took over for Mike Glennon early in his rookie season. He's still not up in that kind of even upper echelon of young quarterbacks with someone like Carson Wentz and Mahomes and Deshaun Watson, but he is improving. He's got a lot of weapons in his offense now. I mean, the Bears added Allen Robinson. Taylor Gabriel has been a really good deep threat for them. Trey Burton, the tight end from Philadelphia. Tariq Cohen has been a guy that's basically the Bears' version of Tyreek Hill. Bill Belichick kind of poo-pooed that comparison a little bit when we talked to him yesterday because Hill is more of a wide receiver, Cohen is more of a running back. But Cohen's been their best pass-catching threat over the last 2 weeks. What does he have? He has 211 yards and a touchdown on 14 receptions in the past 2 games.
That's crazy.
The Bears love running him on those on screens and short passes. They run a lot of RPOs. This is actually an offense very similar to what the Chiefs run, considering Matt Nagy, their head coach, was the Chiefs' offensive coordinator before he went there. So I think you're going to see a lot of similar concepts. The personnel is not as talented,
that's
not
the
as
thing.
Prolific.
It's kind of a poor man's Chiefs offense.
It really is. That's a good way to put it.
Trubisky isn't nearly as good as Mahomes. Jordan Howard is not nearly as good as Kareem Hunt. And then I guess as far as the receivers would go, you would probably compare Taylor Gabriel to Tyreek Hill because he is that deep threat. He's obviously not as good as Tyreek Hill. Allen Robinson, Sammy Watkins, that might be a little bit more of a wash. And we'll probably see Stephon Gilmore covering Allen Robinson. Probably going to shut him down in this game if he's going to do the same thing they did against Sammy Watkins. But then Tariq Cohen, and then I guess I would say Trey Burton's obviously a poor man's Travis Kelce as well. But Tariq Cohen is kind of the joker in that group where the Chiefs don't really have a player like him. He's kind of the receiving threat of Kareem Hunt plus a little bit of the receiving threat of Tyreek Hill. So I think
very, very fast.
He's definitely extremely fast, and he'll be a tough cover for the Patriots. And I wouldn't be surprised, actually, if the Patriots used Patrick Chung against Tariq Cohen and then used Devin McCourty or someone else on Trey Burton. But one of those guys could wind up having a big game, whoever's not being covered by Patrick Chung in this game. But the biggest difference between the Bears and the Chiefs is definitely the defenses, because the Chiefs' defense is bad and the Bears' defense is good. That's pretty much what it breaks down
simple
to.
as that.
Patriots' old friend Akeem Hicks is having a monster season at defensive tackle. Obviously, they've got Khalil Mack, who's another massive playmaker on defense. But just really going down the line on their defense, they've got big impact players at every level. Their linebackers especially are impressive because I guess Khalil Mack would have to count in that group. But Danny Trevathan's always been a good player. Roquan Smith's having a good rookie season. Leonard Floyd, Aaron Lynch are those other 2 edge rushers. And then their secondary, Kyle Fuller's having a good season. Prince Amukamura's having a good season. So, I don't know. This is obviously a very talented defense. It's one of the best defenses in the NFL. And, you know, the Patriot and the Bears offense is high-powered enough that the Patriots could have, I don't know. I mean, I think that the Patriots offense won't have trouble scoring against this Bears team, but it's not going to be as easy as it was in Week 6.
Yeah, I would say so. And the biggest thing about this Bears team is that they make those impact defensive plays that we were talking about earlier. Khalil Mack is basically a walking game breaker. I mean, he had a pretty bad game actually against the Dolphins this past weekend. I know he injured his ankle early on. He might not have been 100%. He might actually not be 100% for this game, which would be a huge break for the Patriots, especially considering we don't know the status of Marcus Cannon. They might have to start Adrian Waddle there like they did against Mack and the Raiders last year. Mack didn't have any sort of major impact on that game. He wasn't a game breaker in that one. But, I mean, you just watched that Week 1 game against the Green Bay Packers where he had, 2 sacks, a pick six, a forced fumble, a fumble recovery. He was all over the field, and that's basically what he's been doing for most of this season for the Bears. And he, like you said, he's only one of the pieces in there, but he's definitely the primary guy for them.
Yeah, he ranks second in Pro Football Focus's pass rush productivity among outside linebackers. D Ford actually ranks first, and the Patriots did a pretty good job of neutralizing D Ford last week against the Chiefs. But I'm sure that it will really be all hands on deck against Khalil Mack. There's going to be help from tight ends, whether it's going to be Marcus Cannon or Trent Brown trying to block him. They'll definitely have some help, and they'll definitely shift the offense the other way to try to keep away from Khalil Mack as much as possible. We'll see some running backs shipping in as well. If anything, I mean, Akeem Hicks might even be as big of a threat as Khalil Mack in this game, just because
he's a beast in there.
The way to get to Tom Brady usually is up the middle. Patriots do have good interior offensive linemen, though, especially this year. I think that David Andrews, Shaq Mason, and Joe Thuney all had really good games against the Chiefs. So if they can keep that up, and if they're going to have to be double teaming Akeem Hicks, that's definitely a way to keep him neutralized. But the Bears definitely bring pressure from multiple angles on this defense. So it's not like the Patriots can focus all of their attention on one player among their offensive linemen.
Definitely. And the rushing aspect's going to be interesting to watch, too, because the Patriots have been tremendous at running the ball over the last couple of weeks. Like we mentioned with Sony Michel, he basically has 100 yards or very, very close to 100 yards in each of his last 3 games. The Bears' rush defense is much better, especially than what they saw against Kansas City. Akeem Hicks, according to Pro Football Focus, he's the best run-defending interior defensive lineman so far this season by a pretty substantial margin. Mm-hmm. So I think the Patriots could run into a little bit more trouble in that regard this weekend. I don't think they're certainly not going to be able to push him and the rest of the Bears front seven around as easily as they were able to do against the Chiefs. So I'm really interested to watch that matchup, see how Sony Michel and the offensive line fare against that front seven.
Yeah, and Hicks isn't just kind of a space eater up front. He's making a lot of plays up front too, based on PFF stats. He has 15 stops on 76 run snaps. He's got the highest run stop percentage among qualified defensive tackles, and he's definitely no slouch as a pass rusher as well, where he's got, let me look this up real quick, he's got 17 total pressures on 133 passing snaps, so that ranks 8th among qualified defensive tackles in pass rush productivity. So, I mean, he's a guy the Patriots had for half a season, or a little more than half a season. They traded Michael Ho'omanawanui for Hicks from the Saints, and Hicks made a big impact in 2015 with the Patriots. Unfortunately for the Patriots, they were really injury-prone that year, so they didn't come away with a Super Bowl or anything, but then Hicks signed with the Bears. He initially signed a short-term deal that the Patriots possibly could have matched, and that's one of the guys that, you can't. Most of the time, Bill Belichick does a good job of letting a guy go too early rather than too late, but that's kind of one that got away from the Patriots a little bit there.
Yeah, I'm sure he's kicking himself after letting him go. What's his contract now, too? He signed a huge deal last year or 2 years ago.
Yeah,
so.
He re-upped with the Bears.
Yeah.
It's a
4-year,
$48 million with $30 million guaranteed. That's a good deal for Akeem Hicks. But, yeah, I mean, it's definitely an interesting game. It's in Chicago, which makes things a little bit more difficult for the Patriots rather than playing at home. The Patriots did lose on the road to Jacksonville and Detroit, so they're 4-0 at home and then 0-2 on the road. So we'll see if the Patriots can kind of break that streak a little bit. But I don't know. I mean, this is a tough matchup. Like we were saying before, kind of similar to the Chiefs, but almost. I don't know. I mean, the Chiefs came in undefeated, so I don't know if you can really say that this is a tougher matchup for the Patriots. Yeah. But considering it is on the road and considering how good the Bears' defense is, and then considering how well Mitchell Trubisky has played over the last couple of weeks, this is a major challenge for the Patriots. And if they come out of this game with a loss, I don't think anyone should really freak out about it. It's going to be a close game.
Yeah, it's a really compelling matchup, and I don't know if people are recognizing how good this Bears team is right now, because they've been kind of crap for a while now. But we all kind of expected this game to get flexed into to Sunday night. We were kind of crossing our fingers and hoping it didn't, because that would mean 5 straight primetime games for us. But yeah, I mean, if the Bears hadn't lost in overtime down in Miami this past weekend, they'd be 4-1, 5-1 entering this game. So that would be 4-2 against 5-1. Even with the record they have, they're still in first place. In the
Bears
are
3-2 actually, so
they're 3-2, so they would have been 4-1 because they've already had their bye week. So, but they're first place in the NFC North, which has obviously Aaron Rodgers and the Vikings and the Lions team that beat the Patriots a couple weeks ago. So, yeah, this is a very good Bears team. I'm interested to see how this plays out.
And yeah, they lost to the Dolphins. Who else did the Bears lose to?
They lost to Aaron Rodgers in Week 1 with that
There
crazy
we go.
comeback. They were up
Yes.
something like 28-0 and then lost it in the second half.
So it's not as if, I mean, the Dolphins, say what you will about that game. It was 100 degrees in Miami too, so that was definitely a tough matchup for the Bears. But
And they had Brock Osweiler on the other side. You can't really compete with him.
no, absolutely not. Especially not in Brocktober. All right, well, that will do it for this week's NESN Patriots podcast. Keep it on NESN. I messed that up real bad. Let's just get the hell out of here.
Power through it.
Keep it on NESN.com for all of your Patriots coverage. Follow me on Twitter at Doug Kyed. Follow Zach on Twitter at Zack Cox NESN. And we will be back next week recapping this game and previewing the Patriots Monday night matchup against the Buffalo Bills. So come back and stay tuned.